captain turns to me and asks me, "Are you afraid of lizards?" And you say, "Okay, then don't look back. You just get out." We used to have classrooms made out of mud and earth floors. I had one teacher. She taught us everything. And I learned English and Swahili indoors. For me, COVID was a very interesting time. I paid my rent, paid my mom's rent, and I was left with 5,000 shillings. There are two very important days in a pilot's life. The first is the I've always wanted to be a pilot. I remember when I was 7 or 8, when I learned the meaning of the word pilot. I was intrigued on two levels. One, because I didn't know people actually fly the planes that I would see fly over our houses. And two, because no one in my class at the time wanted to be a pilot. So I figured, maybe let me try this thing that everyone doesn't want to be. This was back in Rongo. Maybe class 1 or class 2. And since then, it's informed everything I have done for a long while. It informed the high school that I wanted to go to and that I eventually went, what I did in high school, and everything I did was building up to become a pilot. And I've been very fortunate. I do realize that it's not the story for many people. So I don't discount the part that luck has played in it.
So when you think back, of course all these things come from somewhere.
Yes.
What triggered this ambition to be a pilot?
I wish I could say it's because I met a pilot when I was younger. I met one guy. My dad used to work with him in an NGO, I forget the name. It was a white guy. He had a private pilot license back home, so he'd occasionally fly. And before high school, that's the only person I'd met. He gave me his email at the time. So when I got an email address, I flooded his inbox with many questions. I think he must have answered maybe 1 or 2 emails and just stopped. And at some point, maybe on my 50th email, I figured maybe this guy doesn't want to talk to me anymore. Yeah. So that's the only guy I'd met. Later on, I met one of my dad's friends who was a captain in Wilson. I forget the company, but I met him very briefly. We spent an afternoon in his house, and at the time, my dad was trying to convince me to go to campus instead of flying. And I came out more convinced that I needed to fly. So I think it didn't work out for him. So yeah, those are the only pilots I met before I really got into this.
So there was never a plan?
Surprisingly, no. I remember in primary, I went to boarding in class 5. So when you got to class 8, we were to choose the national schools that you'd want to go to. And to this day, I only remember 2 that I put in that paper. After that, I don't remember, and if my memory serves me right, I didn't care which are the schools, because I put number 1 as Mangu, number 2 as Maseno, because those are the only 2 national schools that did aviation as an examinable subject. And to me, I did not fathom any other places. I was very fortunate to get into Mangu, so yeah.
Paint us a picture of your primary school education.
Okay, my primary school education, it started in a place called Rongo. Rongo Primary was a government school back then. I drank maziwa nyayo. So Rongo Primary at the time, right now it's a lot better than it used to be, but at the time we used to have classrooms made out of mud and earth floors. So what we'd do, and especially during the dry seasons, we'd have to come out early and sprinkle water so that the dust can settle. And I remember something interesting was, in a class, I don't know how many we were, we must have been at least 20 kids in there. There were only 3 desks. The desks were reserved for the girls and the top performer, right? And at the time, when I became number 1, but at that age, you don't want to be seen sitting next to girls, so I'd give up my desk privileges to go sit at the back. And I had one teacher. She taught us everything. She taught us 6 subjects. There was maths, English, Swahili, and civics, and something else. And the 6th one was Luo was an actual subject, and I learned English and Swahili in Luo. I was taught in Luo, so that was interesting. And this is where I learned the name pilot, and what a pilot does. And I guess that's where the dream was born. Flying has been everything I expected it to be, and much more, to be quite honest with you. What I'd imagined, having not really known a pilot before, I imagined just sitting around. Unlike most people, what drew me to the career was not really the traveling. It was the intrigue of actually flying the aircraft. You know, the takeoffs and landings. Some time back, I remember one of my cousins was flying to the US. Back then when JKA would let people go all the way, there was a viewing bay, you'd see the aircraft. And we went, and I was so intrigued to see, just knowing that there's someone who was actually controlling that aircraft with those many people in there. So yes, this must have been sometime when I was in high school. So my intrigue was rooted not in the going to places, but the actual controlling of the aircraft. Now, when I became one, I found that there's a lot more. There's much, much more to flying than just, you know, the controlling, which is great. But there's the seeing the world, there's the meeting many different people, and just so many things. So yes, flying has been all that and much more.
You demystify, you know, what you do.
Right.
And how tough it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. The journey of being a pilot, I guess. Mine started back in 2011, 3rd of January, I remember. I went down to South Africa. I had gone through the Aviation program, the selection program, and I was chosen. We went down to South Africa on the 3rd of January. So what you go to do in a flight school is just really, yes, learn how to fly, but in the smaller aircraft, the single engine aircraft. It took me a year and a half. When I came back, and what still happens right now is you come back and now you are trained onto the jet. Right, at the time we were moved on to the 737. So 737 is a 150 passenger aircraft from a single engine aircraft. So you can imagine the steep curve, but it is doable. At the time, I mean, you're young, you're able to, you know, push your limits, you're able to absorb a lot more in a very short period of time. And beyond that, we had fantastic instructors. I mean, KQ has really, really good instructors. It's evidenced by the fact that the guys who live here to other airlines perform really, really well. So that was it. So you start as a first officer. I get this question a lot. Are you the captain or the other guy? The other guy is also a pilot. The only difference between the two is one has more experience than the other and a bit more training. Right? Both of them can fly the aircraft just as good, right? But someone ultimately has to have the responsibility, and the responsibility is placed on the captain's shoulder, right? But the first officer can fly just as well. He's just less experienced. So the way KQ works and the way it's been done, it's changing a bit now, but the way it's been done is there's something called a seniority list. So the day you join the company, you enter the seniority list from the bottom, all right? So the person who came into the company before you would always get the chance before you do. So when you enter the seniority list, you enter as a first officer in the lowest fleet, right? And you work your way up. So when it's time for you to be promoted, you go to the next fleet. There are really 3 fleets in KQ. There's the Embark fleet, the 737 fleet, and the 787 fleet. As you join as a first officer on the Embark fleet. After some time, once you're promoted, you move to the 737 fleet. The Embark fleet majorly does domestics and East Africa mostly, and a bit of Southern Africa. Then the 737 fleet flies a bit, it's a bigger airplane, flies a little longer, goes across Africa and a bit into the Middle East, Dubai and India. Then after that, you move on to the 787, which is the wide body. It carries a lot more people, flies a lot farther. So you go to the States, to the Europe and the Far East. Then once that is done, when your time comes, you're promoted as a captain. But then again, you have to come down as a captain on the Embark fleet. So this is where I am right now. And as we were talking about it, you have to, it's a different lifestyle. On the 787, the flights are longer, so you do fewer flights a month, right? You leave here, you come back 4 days later, you have a few days off, you leave again. There are trips that are long as 10 days. So once you go, you have to come back and get 3-4 days off before you leave. So you can only do so much in a month. On the Embraer, on the other hand, is you leave in the morning, go to Mombasa, come back, go home. The next day you're going to Kisumu and Kigali, come back, go home. The day after that you're going to Dar es Salaam, you come back, go home. So as opposed to going to the airport maybe 5, maximum 6 times a month, right now you're doing those 6 times a week. Yes, so that's the big difference. However, it's also a different role, it's a different experience, and besides the drive to the airport every other day, I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Having come from the 787
Yes.
as a first officer,
Right.
now you're down to the Embraer,
Yes.
starting from the bottom.
Yes.
What are some of the lessons you're learning now that perhaps previously you were not learning?
It's very interesting. There's a running joke in the pilot fraternity. The first officer, when you get into a flight deck, the first officer always sits on the right. The captain sits on the left. So as a first officer, if anything goes wrong, you always look left. You always look to the captain. As a captain, if you look left, you'll see your reflection on the window. So there's no one to look at. So the biggest, there are many lessons, but the biggest is you are ultimately responsible for whatever happens in that flight. And it's really a lot more about people management. Because by the time you become a captain, you can fly. It's not about you flying anymore, it's about managing their operations, making sure you fly safely, efficiently, on time, and you work together with your team. So I'm continuously learning that different people, to achieve the exact same result, that position is peculiar in this way. Every day you go to work, the goal is the same. The result has to be the same. However, your team is constantly changing. So to achieve the exact same result with different people, there are certain things you have to be able to not compromise on, and there are things you'll be forced to compromise on. You can't say, this is how I usually am, this is how it has to be done. Sometimes you get a set of people who would prefer to do it a different way, but you have to be comfortable to know that regardless of the route that you take to achieve the goal has to remain the same. So that's a very interesting experience for me. Yes.
Has being a captain changed in any way how you interact with life or in life?
Personally, no. Being a captain has not changed my view, my perspective in life. It's more responsibilities, which is both interesting and sometimes daunting. But as you do it more and more, you get to learn how to handle the different situations. But it has not changed how I view life. Because as we were speaking, I am very intentional about being more than just what I do. And I would not let what I do change who I am. So being a captain is fantastic. I am thoroughly enjoying it, but has it changed how I look at life? Not really. Yes.
What are some of the habits you have to adopt for you to operate at an excellent level?
Oh, many. Some of the habits that you have to adopt for you to operate at an excellent level is, one of them is time management. And especially in this role, it's that aircraft won't leave until you get there. And things, for the most part, will not happen until you get there. So keeping in mind that there are people who've been in that airport 4 hours before you, they have places to be, they have very important things to do, and you are just but a part of that journey of theirs. I personally would not want to be the reason they don't get to do that. So one of the things that makes me want to be excellent at what I do is because I understand viscerally how much a mistake or a lag on my part can affect someone's life. Maybe someone's going to hospital, maybe someone's going to see a family member, maybe someone is going for a very important business meeting. If I'm not able to get them there or on time or even able to get them there, that I might not even know, but the way I'd affect their life might be massive, and I would not want to do that. So some of the things that you have to do is you have to be on time, you have to be excellent, and ultimately, the aircraft I fly carries about 96 people. Ultimately, all their lives are in your hands.
Are there a pilot that you greatly admire, who you want to fashion your career around?
I don't know if it's just one person, but I can give you different examples. I had the great fortune of flying with some really excellent captains back when I was a first officer. And they would inspire me in different ways. Before one of them retired, he talked about his family and how he had been able to keep his family together, which is it's not a mean feat in this line of work, because you're away a lot. And at the time before he retired, I flew with him a few months before he retired, and his daughters were all flying in to see him getting ready for his retirement, and that is great. That is great. I've flown with someone who does not work extra because he's raising a boy and he understands what that means, and he wants to be there as much as he can. So such people inspire me to be a better, father, husband, despite and in spite of all the challenges. But also, there are people who, when I was flying with them, I never got to the flight deck before them. They're always punctual, they're always on, up to standard, they're well dressed. So such people also inspire me. Your image matters. When you walk through that terminal, there are people who look at you. There's a kid who might look at you and think, maybe I want to be a pilot because of this. So such people inspire me as well. The other people who were really excellent in how they dealt with everyone, with the crew, how they created the team spirit every time we flew. Such people inspire me. So is there one person who inspires me? Not really. But I try to glean and pick a few things from everyone with the short period of time I have or I fly with them. So certainly there are many, many excellent airmen, and especially in this company, people who in different ways inspire me, but I don't think it's just one person.
Worst and best moments. So you've been flying for what, 13?
Yes, 13 years now. Right. I've been flying 13 years now. I've had one of my favorite moments. It was very surreal. It was the first time I landed in New York. I mean, I don't think it's great for most people because people do it all the time. But growing up, I never thought I would ever go to America, leave alone fly and land in New York. So that was a surreal moment for me. I was 27 at the time, I remember. So that's one of the greatest moments. The other moment was when I flew my dad. That was interesting. I have one of those African dads who would never tell you, you've done well. So he comes after I've had one of the smoothest landings I've ever had, and he's like, you're ni kazi kidogo. This is all you do. You just sit around, and that's his way of saying, I'm proud of you. So that was one of my best moments. It's a very terrifying moment. I don't know if it's terrifying. It's interesting. We had flown to Douala. We got to Douala. It was a cargo flight because of the intricacies of, taking cargo and coming back with it. Custom clearance wasn't done in time, and our duty time was out, so we had to spend the night in Douala. But that particular aircraft, that particular cargo aircraft, cannot fly empty. So you have to put some weight in it. So they decided, since they couldn't clear the pallets that we had carrying the cargo, they decided to give us other pallets that they had been left there for months. So we said, okay, fine, just give us that stack of pallets. So long as it meets the weight, that would be fine for us. So we put the stack of pallets in the aircraft, we close the aircraft, go spend the night. Next day we're flying back. The cargo flights are usually very relaxed. There's no passenger, you're probably four guys, we were three guys at the time. Myself, the captain, and a load master. So we're just, telling stories. We're flying over the Congo forest. There's just a vast of green, nothing to really see. And the captain turns to me and asks me, "Are you afraid of lizards?" And that was a very weird, off-the-cuff question. And I said, "No, I don't like them, but I'm not afraid." And say, "Okay, then don't look back. You just get out." I'm like, "What do you mean?" It's like, "Don't look back. Just come out." So, okay, I come out from my seat because he was looking at me. I come out from my seat. Then after that, it tells me, just look. So somewhere around here, I was seated at the back in the aircraft. There's usually a circuit breaker panel. There's a lot of circuit breakers. There was a lizard this big, just sitting there. It had colored skin, and it was on the circuit breaker, so we couldn't hit it, because lest we hit one of the circuit breakers, and now we have a bigger problem than we initially had. So I ended up landing, not on my seat. The captain had to fly alone. And later on, first of all, KWS told us not to kill it. Apparently, the last thing we could do is kill it. So when we landed in Nairobi, so many guys were waiting for us. A fire engine, I don't know why a fire engine came. There was a fire engine there. The policemen were there. I don't know why they came. I don't know whether they were going to arrest the lizard. But the KWS guys took it. And later on, turned out it was a venomous lizard that is only found in the Congo, in the Cameroonian forest. So that was an interesting event. It was initially terrifying, but later on became a cool story.
Some of the interesting things people ask you about being a pilot.
Oh, many. Top of the list is, how much is it to go to Sudan? How much is it to go to Ghana? How much is it to go to the US? I don't know. Most pilots, in fact, I dare say, all pilots do not know. We all have to call the sales team just like you. The other one is, can you take me? No, I cannot. No, I cannot. I do not have that level of power. Maybe some people have, I don't. I don't have that level of power. The other question is, are you afraid? No. I guess once you understand the mechanics of it, you understand that there's really nothing to be afraid of. And I definitely understand people who have the phobia of flying, and there are people like that. However, once you understand how an airplane works, you know that you are safer. You're actually safer flying than driving. Yeah, something the range of 7 times safer flying than driving. But anyway, and the other one is, are you scared of turbulence? Turbulence is actually just uncomfortable. It's not unsafe. Does flying give me a different perspective of my own spirituality? Do I feel closer since I'm at 43,000 feet? This is assuming that God is up there. All right. To be honest with you, I used to get such, should I call them epiphanies, or only when I was in flight school, because it was so surreal to me. I couldn't imagine that I was in that position. And severally I'd feel, a wave of well, let's call it gratitude. With gratitude, take over. But just like many things, you do it long enough, you run the risk of taking it for granted. Yes. So if you find me at 43,000 feet, or right now 37,000 feet, 41,000 feet, I'm in the office, just like you would be in the office. Yes. And I bet you don't sit in your office thinking, oh my God, I've written 100 books. You're just always looking at what your next project is. So it's, in that regard, it's unfortunate. However, there are moments that bring you back to that space of gratitude. I mean, just flying and watching the sunrise. Sometimes it's just as simple as that. And especially lately, when Nairobi is just a big fridge. It's just very cold. And you're up there and you can see the sun coming up and it's very warm. You understand that you get to experience something that a large majority of the demographic do not. And you are grateful. The one thing I really want badly now, I am a greedy person in that regard. I want many things. However, one of the things I want badly right now is to be a great, not just a role model, but a great example of what a man should be to my son. That's the one thing my heart aches for. Yes.
What's that? What should a man be?
That's the point, isn't it? It's to try and define that for him, and hopefully it's a definition that would make sense to him and that he can emulate. I have an irrational fear of turning a certain age, which I shall not mention, and not being close to what I thought or I think life should be like. I know it's irrational. I know you can't tell how life is supposed to turn out. And I understand all these things. However, it's a fear that I have. And I'm not too far from it.
40.
Yes. I have an irrational fear of getting to 40 and being clueless or about what my life is.
So I want you to describe the ideal 40 for you.
Oh, that's a moving target. That's a moving target. When I was 21, ideal 40 was driving a cool car. That's not it anymore. When I'll be turning 40, my son will just be getting into his teen years. So I don't know what an ideal 40 would be, but if I can get to a point where on a day that I want, I can put my son in the car or my daughter or my family and drive to a certain place that I want and just be off grid for maybe 3-4 days and nothing will happen.
How was COVID for you back then?
Whoa. How was COVID? I think outside of doctors maybe, and mostly because they did a wonderful job and they are the most affected. We must come a close second as a group. It got to a point that we didn't, or at least I didn't know whether I'll have a job or I'll be able to do this again. It just looked so bleak at the time. I remember 24th of March 2020. Landed from London, then we were told to go into quarantine. I thought it was a few hours. So we were like, I'm tired because we landed in the morning. Let's just go into the hotel, sleep, wake up and go home. We ended up staying in that hotel for 3 weeks. At some point, I think on the third day, I had to tell my family to bring me a different suitcase of clothes because I didn't have clothes. The experience in quarantine, for me, was not bad. It was not bad at all. I ended up doing many things. We were a bunch of colleagues and friends, which was good. That was fun. Got out, got to see my family. Then the rubber met the road. All the aircraft are grounded, and no flying means no pay. Our pay was reduced to, at one point we were earning 19%. I mean 19% doesn't sound that bad until the day I was paid. I paid my rent, paid my mom's rent, and I was left with 5,000 shillings. With a young family, my son was just maybe 6 months at the time. And my mom and my sister were living together. And that's when I knew things were thick. So for me, COVID was a very interesting time. Looking back now, I can look back with a lot of fond memories. However, at the time, I figured I had to do something different. I wasn't flying. I ended up being on ground for 7 months. I didn't fly for 7 months. In the 7 months, I tried different businesses. I just tried to get some level of income. I used to drive I had a van at the time. I drove for, I forget the company. I used to deliver fridges and cookers to people's houses. I sold eggs. I'd wake up at 2 a.m. in the morning and go to Gitaru. Do you know where Gitaru is? Gitaru is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, eggs market in East Africa. It's just right here next to Kikuyu. And the market is not your usual market times. The actual market is from 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. in the morning. So if you want eggs in bulk, that's where you had to go. So I did that, and I'd come and effectively hawk them, to different shops. I remember one of my former schoolmates meeting me and asking me, "Aren't you?" I'm like, "Yes." "Want you?" I'm like, "Yes." "But," I'm like, "Are you buying the eggs or not?" Right. So that was interesting. But the reason why I look back at those times with such fondness is because luckily the business has held on and still runs until today. It's not eggs, but it's a different thing. But it still runs until today. And it's been able to afford us a few luxuries as a family. So when I went back after 7 months, it was, I remember flying to China. In China, we had to wear, we called them spacesuits, but the things people had to wear. So you land there, then you had to wear all those things before you got out of the aircraft. And with my height, the thing would only reach my knees, and the Chinese were amused. So every time I'd come, they'd just start laughing. And of course they only spoke Chinese, but I realized they were laughing at me, and it was fun. However, it wasn't heartbreaking. I don't know how to describe it. 2020 must have been the peak of aviation travel. The airports were full. The terminals were full. You're always snaking through a huge mass of people, to a point where you'd land in Guangzhou, for example, a huge, massive airport, and the whole terminal is just you and your crew just walking. There's absolutely no one. And on the tarmac, the aircraft are just packed, just covered in dust. It's not flown for months. And you look at that and you just wonder whether this will ever end. And you go into China, and you had to go, there's a trip that we'd go into China for 5 days. You can't leave your room for 5 days. They feed you, someone comes to your door and knocks. When you open, they're lost. So they feed you, they put your food outside the door and get lost. And you have to be like that for 5 days. And unfortunately for me, I don't take seafood. And so I had to carry, food from home, dry foods, peanuts and some juices. to survive on it for 5 days. And just coming from that and back into flying, it was a period of extreme uncertainty, a lot of anxiety, and so many things happened. Unfortunately, some people, most of us struggled with that because we were not used to first of all, just being home. That brought up some very interesting problems and challenges rather. And just navigating that and understanding, reconnecting and coming back. And there was a sense of deeper appreciation for what you do after that. So that was an interesting time. The one thing I'm very good at is, and I think I'm slowly starting to accept it. I find solutions. Whatever the case. Before I thought it was just because it's in the house and my wife asks me and tells me and but I find even in my group of friends, sometimes finding a solution does not bother me. It comes easy to me. So maybe that's something I'm good at. Other than eating chapatis, that one. Actually, I changed my answer. I'm very good at eating chapatis. I changed my answer.
If you're to give that boy in Rongo a piece of advice now, knowing what you know,
yes,
what would that be?
I was afraid of this question.
Yeah.
I was afraid of it. I always see people ask this ask the question, if you were to give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be? I would tell him to not worry too much. Live a little. And this is what I mean. In high school, and maybe, you say this because you know the results now. But in high school, I could have joined the drama, maybe just try. I know I would not be any good, but I could have tried. I spent a lot of time. I'd spent a majority of my time in class and in basketball. So basketball really saved me. I'd tell him things would be fine. Things will be fine. Just keep believing, keep working hard, but above all, live. Just try a few things in there.
What's the best part working for the airline?
I'll answer this question this way. I once had the opportunity to leave a company, right? Not leaving is probably one of the best decisions I've ever made on many different levels. KQ, and if I'm being very frank, is a wonderful employer. And especially and I'm just speaking from the position I'm in, and understand the position I'm in, because it's only in KQ that beyond being home, whatever you need to do, if you needed to do something, you can, right? You're able to find a way around your colleagues, around your managers, around all these things, just together with everyone, you can. So our schedules can be rigid, but if you needed to do something, you can do it. If it wasn't for KQ, I honestly wouldn't be here. The ab initio program, there's no way my family would have afforded to send me to flight school. There is no way. Through that program, I'm here. And I'm really grateful for that chance. KQ is a very good employer. It's a very good employer. I would not, unless compelled, I would not leave.
If you were a country, what country would you be and why?
If I was a country, what country would I be?
Yeah, or city. In fact, let's go with city.
If I was a city,
yeah.
What city would I be? That's the weirdest question I've ever had.
Thanks.
You're welcome. I don't know. I've never sat down to consider myself a city.
You look at cities as
I see the good and bad in every city.
right.
Yeah, I can't say New York because New York is fun. It's really good, but again, I hate winters. So no, I guess Bangkok would be great. It's a toss-up between Accra in Ghana and Dakar in Senegal. Not because I consider myself a Pan-Africanist. Thank you very much. But of all the places I have been, outside of Kenya, those are the two places I felt at home. Dakar because I tend to look like a Senegalese. I don't know if that's it, but they're wonderful people. They're very calm people, very welcoming. But Accra also because Accra is just a beautiful city. Very nice people, very good food. It's not fast-paced, it's very chilled, can be very hot, just like Dakar can be. One of those. And I like and love how those people are very proud to be African. Yeah, some people call me black. I don't know is it not evident?
If you squint.
If you squint hard enough. It came from high school. I've had all the black jokes because of my skin color. All of them. Some say I look like under the bed. Some say if I close my eyes, I disappear. Some say, you name it, all of them. So I guess I figured if everyone thinks I'm black, then I came somewhere in high school. Yes, just started. That was my basketball name. So I remember we were printing T-shirts for our basketball team, and mine was printed black, and it stuck to date. So if there's a delay, everyone goes on to X and starts saying, oh, KQ always delays. All airlines delay. Delays are a very normal thing in the industry. However, you understand. You also want to understand the person. Maybe they have been delayed going for a wedding, for a business meeting. So you understand where they're coming from, and you understand why they would want to speak like that. But in the large scheme of things, if the aircraft you're waiting for to go for your flight went to Kigali, for example, and the weather is so bad they can't leave, you understand? There's really not much else KQ can do, right? Beyond that. I also understand that maybe communication could be better, but it's always amazing to see that the biggest critics of Kenya Airways are usually Kenyans. Other national, and especially other Africans, love and understand the company a bit more. Not to say that we are bereft of our, shortcomings and misgivings. However, it's not as bad as it has been portrayed for the most part. Sometimes it's just what it is. Yeah, the weather is bad. There's a technical issue. There's no way as a company, even as a pilot in good conscience, you're not going to take a faulty aircraft. So you'd rather delay, but live with a good aircraft. Yes. So, but also you understand, sometimes people's lives have to move, or the way it's affected them, we would not understand. So you also understand why people would want to go on social media and vent. There's a photo of myself next to one of the trainers, the aircraft we used to use back in South Africa. We had just taken our first international flight, my friend Andrew and I, and we got to a place called Kimberley, and we took photos. And that stands out for me because beyond everything, it was the first time I actually flew across international borders. So that photo is stands out for me. When I got my first command, that will be forever etched. Or when you become a captain, you become a commander. So we say you've gotten command. So when you become a captain, it's what do they call it? It's pilot lingo.
When was this?
This year, May.
Oh, you want to talk a bit about that?
What do you want to know?
The feeling.
Oh, the feeling.
Is it like a ceremony or you handed something?
Uh,
You're now moving from 3 to 4, eh?
yes.
Okay. I want to know first of all, I want to know if there's like a small ceremony. And second,
No. Not done by the company, because it's just normal. It's like you being promoted at work. You're given a different desk, a different office, and let's go, right? However, in my opinion, there are two very important days in a pilot's life. The first is the day you do your first solo. When you fly your first solo, the first time you're left with an aircraft alone to fly, it's a surreal feeling. Mine was on the 15th of March 2011. I remember this very well. Aircraft, the registration was Zulu Sierra Oscar Sierra Whiskey. South African, back in Port Elizabeth, Progress Flight School. So that was then. Then the other very important day is the day you get your first command. Because everything you do as a pilot leads up to that. Everyone trains to become a pilot, to become a captain. So the day you actually become a captain is another very out-of-body experience, if I could say that. Because now you're here.
What did you do that day? Did you go straight home?
I did. I drove home, I slept, and the next morning, that's when it really hit me. Yes.
Did you tell the wife?
Yeah, I mean, she knew. Yeah, she knew it was happening. So that was good.
New spring in your Walkman?
Oh, I've always had a spring, but I had an extra spring. You know? I was born with a spring in my work. What do you mean? Yes, it's different. It's the feeling of everything I've done, I've learned was for this. I always and it keeps me grounded, because it might sound like a cliche, but I know where I came from. I know what I've had to do to get here. So it's always good to look back and just see. I know I'm not where I want to be, but the journey that I've traveled is a very long journey. I say this with a lot of heaviness in my heart, because sometimes you look back at the people you grew up with, and there's really nothing special about me. It could have been anyone. And sometimes for some people, life was not probably just as kind. They're not that fortunate. So it always reminds me that yes, you worked hard. Yes, you deserve this. But to a level, it could have gone anyway. Could have gone any other way. So I am continually grateful, incredibly grateful for the things that I've been able to achieve, to actually live out my dream. I also understand that not many people live out their dreams. Not many people who start when they're young saying, this is what I want to be, actually become that. So and in that regard, I'm extremely fortunate. So I don't take it for granted. There's a tweet here by one Karanja Ouma Abdi Lemeyan something. Lakini mnakuanga expensive Kenya Airways, afadhali Ethiopian ama Qatar na Turkish Airlines. I would like to shed a bit of light. I'm certainly not trained in this. The people at sales would know this a lot better than I do. But the way the airline industry works is, as an airline, you try and take maximum advantage of your advantage, right? Your leverage. If a Kenyan wants to go to New York, the quickest way is Nairobi direct to New York, right? Any other airline would not offer that. The only airline that would offer that would be Kenya Airways. If a Kenyan would want to live here direct to Johannesburg, the quickest way is Nairobi direct to Johannesburg. So I see people saying, such and such airline would be cheaper. But that airline would have to take you to their hub, board another flight, and to where you're going. Because of that, it is cheaper. There's a joke that says, if you have enough connections, you could fly free. If you want to go to, say, New York, and you live here and go to China, go to Australia, go to Dubai, go to... If you find all those connections, your ticket might be $10. That's a joke. So the point is, for convenience, right? For convenience, the airline that gives you the most convenience would be more expensive than one that gives you less convenience. From here to Johannesburg is at most 4 hours. So if you want to get to Johannesburg in 4 hours, or you don't mind getting there in 10 hours, because one would take you from here to another hub for 2 hours, make you wait 4 hours, then fly you 6 hours to Johannesburg. So that's why it would be cheaper. So I would understand this, but if only people understood. A friend of mine actually once found a ticket. He was flying to the UK, and KQ was, I don't remember what it was, and he found Turkish, and it was less than maybe a third of what KQ was asking, and he immediately booked it. I was like, this is cheaper, makes sense. When he landed in Turkey, he realized that his connection was the next day. He was not allowed to leave the airport. He was not allowed to go anywhere. So he spent 23 hours at the airport to catch the next flight the next day to London. So sometimes cheap is expensive. I'm not saying don't look at your options. Definitely look at your options. There are destinations KQ doesn't fly to, so you probably don't have that option as KQ. But for sure, for efficiency, if that's what you're looking for, KQ is most likely going to be your best option.